Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rachel Varga, and if you're tuning in on the Rachel Varga Facebook page or YouTube channel or on the Rachel Varga podcast, welcome. Welcome back. If you're a returning listener, I am so grateful for each and every one of you taking this journey with me while I interview some of the leading health and wellness experts and icons to basically help bring you guys the information that is really helpful for myself personally, but I really want to share these messages to help you understand how to balance your body, mind, spirit energy to bring forth a higher level of radiance, beauty, vitality, vibrancy, all of that wonderful, juicy stuff that no, you cannot just buy in a beauty product. It takes time to cultivate. And today we have Aimee Carlson joining us. She is known as the Toxin Terminator. And I'm so grateful to have you on, Aimee. Welcome.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm so excited to be here.
We're going to be covering all sorts of fun things. In this episode, you're going to learn about reducing your toxic exposure in your beauty products, environment, and thoughts to help you be as radiant as possible. Aimee, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I got into this whole toxin-free lifestyle journey about 7 years ago when it was an accidental opportunity. I really had no idea what toxins even were at that time. But what I soon found out was that many of the health situations I had going on for myself were related to the toxins within my environment, more specifically, the everyday products I was using in my home. And in short order, as I started learning what to take out and what to replace in with, I found that I didn't have a lot of the symptoms that I once had. And I really started having rejuvenated health. And it was so outstanding for me that I just had to put a voice to it. So I started a podcast. I started teaching others, how to look at the things that you're using every single day and how that impacts your health.
I think that's fantastic. So what is radiance to you?
That's such a great question. I think radiance is that inner peace that we feel shining outward. That's the easiest way I feel like I can describe it, because you can't radiate something you don't have within yourself. And if you don't have that inner peace inside, then you're just not going to have that radiance about yourself.
I definitely echo what you're saying. And I know when, I'm a little bit more stressed out than I usually am, my skin tends to respond. But what's interesting is that the toxins and things and stressors that you're exposed to actually will manifest their skin later, like a couple weeks to almost a month later. So it's funny, we're always looking for that quick skin fix, but really our skin cell cycle is about a month. So
Mm-hmm.
what we do now impacts our skin about a month from now. That's why those quick fix remedies for getting rid of wrinkles and skin irritation, they don't really work. There's a number of different layers that we need to add and know that that skin improvement will happen actually within that time period. So really, really interesting topic here.
Absolutely. Yes.
So what are your most vibrant clients doing?
I specifically talk to people about the things that we're using every day. It's just like what we eat can have a huge impact in our overall health. What we use every single day can have a big impact. And so those people are taking those small steps. We don't have to tackle it all at once. We don't have to go through our house throwing everything away. And I have some clients that do. They want to know what tell me everything I need to do. And I have, room by room checklist. Get this out right away and then replace with this. And I took 3 years to get everything removed out of my house. But so I walk people step by step. What is your lifestyle? What is your personality? How is this going to look for you? Because if you can't resonate with the solution, you're not going to do it. And so we need to make sure that we're coming up with a game plan that's going to work for you in order to get these toxins removed out of your environment.
So what were some of the things that you had removed from your environment?
Oh, sure. I was the what's that store called? Bath and Body Works queen. You know, 10 years ago, I when they had their sales, I would go in and get those lotions all the time because I loved the scents. I was a perfume fragrance queen.
Mhm.
And I suffered from migraines every single day. And sometimes I would actually lose the vision on my left side.
Wow.
And I would see specialist after specialist and given all kinds of different medications. And there was never any true relief for my symptoms until I got rid of fragrance from my home. And as soon as I got rid of the fragrance, my headaches and migraines went away. I haven't had a migraine in 7 years. And that was simply by removing fragrance. So that came in the form of the lotions that I was using, the body washes I was using. There's even fragrance in the household cleaners that we
Or
use.
scented candles.
Yep, I didn't have a ton of candles, but I sure had the sprays, that we can spray around in our home, and we don't want that. We don't want that for ourselves. Even if you don't have migraines, it's certainly affecting the neurological system of your body.
Hmm. I know when I walk into a big box store, which I don't often, but say I need to get some type of supply and I'm going into these big stores, I actually get overwhelmed by the
Mhm.
smells. And I find that the healthier you get, the more dialed in that you get in respects to your health and wellness, you will actually notice a little bit more easily when you are in an environment that is toxic to you,
Yes.
both in an environmental and sort of like energetic type of way. It's
Yes.
quite interesting.
You do dial into that. I cannot walk up and down the cleaning aisles or the laundry aisles of any kind of store. There's so much off gassing that's happening in those aisles. I don't like to stay in hotels because the toxins in the rooms are just overwhelming to my body. So I can agree with that. And like the energy, when you walk into a room, and I used to call it my intuition, where you could just feel like, there's just not a good vibe in here. This might not be the place I need to stay.
Mhm. Yeah, whatever that may be, right?
Exactly.
And the whole off-gassing thing is huge. So for
Yes.
example, in these big box stores, products are encased in plastic, right?
Hmm.
And that plastic is actually what's off-gassing, not necessarily the product itself. So, you go in these big box stores, you're exposed to all the junk lighting as well. That's another type of toxic exposure that we might not necessarily have thought about in the past, but we're starting to learn more and more about the impacts through our eyes and the different hormonal pathways that we're just starting to unlock there, which is really interesting. And
Yes.
I remember I'd picked up just, some props for a background of mine a couple of years ago. And there was something with this, like, it was like this little like fake plant, like a planter. It was cute, but it just had the grossest smell to it and it never went away.
Hmm.
But also something to note is that if you purchase something and it also doesn't have a smell to it, sometimes there could even be something added to counteract that off-gassing smell.
Yes. Absolutely. When we are looking for products, our best bet is to get products that are fragrance free because even unscented has been chemically altered to cover up the fragrance that's in the product. So we want to be looking for things that say fragrance free. Even products today, natural, hypoallergenic, those type of words just don't mean anything like they used to.
Mhm.
And even their Glade announces on their commercials that they have plugins that are fragranced with essential oils. Well, you can't fragrance something with an essential oil, and that would be far from a pure essential oil that I'd want to put in my body or in my house. Something coming from Glade.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting when I have clients coming to see me and they have this sort of smell about them, whether it's their fabric softener or their laundry detergent. Typically, they don't have as good of skin as someone who comes to me that has made an effort to reduce their exposure to these hormone disrupting fragrances. It's
Yes.
really quite interesting. I had some young ladies come and see me for concerns with their acne, and they just came to the room, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like the fragrance that they had on them through their beauty products. You know, they're young, they're wanting to try these like
Right.
fun things that they see this influencer talk about that's just probably loaded with heavy metals and fragrances and all of that.
Yeah.
And it even took a while for that smell to even leave the room, even with really good air ventilation, because at this time we need that really, really great cleansing of the air in the room for treatments. So it's crazy how long these fragrances can stick around in our environment and also on us, in our hair and on our clothing.
Right. Right. Where our skin is our largest organ of our body, and it is part of the detox system of our body as well. So if your body is overloaded with toxins and it can't dispel out of the kidney, out of the livers, then the next place it's going to go is on our skin. And that's why many people will develop psoriasis, eczema, acne, change in body or your skin. If you once had dry skin, now you have oily skin, you develop body odors that you didn't have before. These are all signs that you've got toxins building up inside your body.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So to observe our elimination habits, how that
Mm-hmm.
is going down, our smells, that's actually a really good sign of if we have become a little bit toxic. I know for myself, if I eat something that I just know I shouldn't have, I feel it. I feel it like a couple of days after.
Yeah.
And you don't know how good you can feel until you actually reduce toxins from your life.
That's one of the things that I talk to people about all the time. I think what happens in our society is we think just because everybody else is suffering from the same thing that we are, that somehow this has become normal. It's the way that we're supposed to feel. And many times, too, we're becoming into this ill health over a long extended period of time. So it has gradually been creeping up on us, and we just don't understand how poorly we feel until we get to the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting. So, how can we fix our beauty from the inside out?
You know, one of the biggest things I see when people start making healthy lifestyle changes in their life is that their beauty, they just radiate. They're just this glow about them. Their skin takes on this just a different hue that you just don't see. And so a few things that I would talk about doing is, number one, we cannot have things balanced out in our body if we're continuing to use endocrine disrupting products in our home. Now, this is starting from what we clean our house with. There are endocrine disrupting products in there, from what our deodorants that we're using, our bath and shower gels, our shampoos. So much of our makeup has endocrine disrupting products in it. So these are some of the first things that we need to get rid of. Anything with parabens, phthalates in it, we want to get rid of those. And then we can start rejuvenating that skin health. And not only is our skin going to be beautiful, but we're going to feel better. And when we feel better, we just are more beautiful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So look at cleaning, your cleaning and self-care products, avoid ingredients like parabens. You mentioned phthalates, artificial
Hmm.
dyes, fragrances, and of course not being tested on animals. You even take it a step further at looking at that particular company's business practice. What type of impact are they making in the world? All of these different layers can empower you to become a more conscious consumer. We're in the age of information. If you are curious about a company's business practice, what their stance is on different social, social things that are happening in the world, I think you can always just reach out and
Hmm.
really pay attention to who you're supporting at this time, because we
Right.
vote with their dollars.
Right. And some of the, you mentioned parabens, perfume. The sodium lauryl sulfate is another big one. Sodium
Yes.
lauryl sulfate is a product, it's a ingredient inside of our products that make it suds. So think of everything that we use that suds. And sodium lauryl sulfate has over 50,000 studies on PubMed alone of the toxicity of this ingredient. It is a absolute no-go for me. It's not allowed in my home. So I encourage you to read those labels. It can be labeled as sodium lauryl sulfate, SLS, or sodium laureth with a TH sulfate, same thing. We don't want it. It's usually about the second or third ingredient listed.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Even, what you're cleaning your dishes with, that's a big one too, because dish detergent often has a lot of fragrance to it. It's creating all that suds also. So look what you're actually cleaning your plates and utensils with. It's
Yes.
all these layers that we can do to clean up our act a little bit. It's
Yep.
going to help to mitigate all of these environmental stressors that we're exposed to living our daily lives, whether it's EMFs, 5G, all that stuff, pollution from cars and emissions and all of that. We really
Well,
have to do our best to clean up our act.
right. And here's the thing, just by listening to what we've been rattling off, in the few moments that we've been together, you can see how this starts to bioaccumulate in the body. So
Hmm.
it's not just necessarily one product alone that's going to be the main culprit. It's the fact that we're using so many different sources, our dish soaps, we're getting toxicities through our water sources, through our food sources, through the air, through absorbing through the body. So there's many different ways that it's happening and many different products. And so that's when the bioaccumulation happens, and our body just does not have the capacity to expel everything that it needs to expel. And then we start getting those toxicity symptoms that we start experiencing. We talked about the condition and the change in the skin, as being some of those things that happen to us. And I tell people too, just small, simple changes can have such an impact in your overall health. You don't let that overwhelm you, because when we start looking at toxins, even myself, who have been researching this for 7 years, it's overwhelming. It's
Mhm.
everywhere. And we have to look at what can we control and what steps can we make that are going to have an impact in our overall health.
Mhm. And if you haven't done any type of detox pathway testing in yourself, there are these really simple kits that you can order. You've heard me talk about this many times through many different interviews, because this is simply a great resource at this time for you guys to take advantage of. Toolboxgenomics.com/Rachel for 10% off of your detox panel test kits. What this does is it helps you isolate which detox pathways you might have a tendency to kind of get backed up.
Mhm.
And for example, my husband, he has a problem with detoxing xenoestrogens, and that
Mhm.
showed up for him. It didn't show up for me. The beauty products that I use, it didn't show up as, having accumulation in my body, which is fantastic. But for him, so we can't forget about men, what they're using. For example, their shaving cream products, their hair products, their deodorants, their aftershaves. Men are using
Mhm.
a lot of, those body sprays that people just used to douse themselves in. And how the xenoestrogens impact men is through hormone imbalancing. So think loss of hair, loss of libido, impacting their skin,
Mhm.
predisposing them to different types of cancers. So what do you think of the concept of, taking a simple swab to figure out what your genes have to say in respects to how you personally detox?
Oh, there's a lot to be said about that, because there is about 70% is the last number I saw, of our society has what they call the MHTFR gene in
Hmm.
them,
Yeah.
which makes it even more difficult for you to process and get rid of toxins in the body. So is that the test that you're talking about?
Yes, it does look at that.
Yeah, so finding out if that's something that is within you, there's some things that they say are symptomatic of it. Blonde hair, blue eyed. Your tendency to have this gene is higher. If you have that raspberry at the back of the neck when you were a baby, so if you can ask your mom, sometimes it goes away, sometimes not. That can be a very big indication that you might have it as well, this gene. If you get the birthmark, I used to call it a birthmark, but it's my son has it and one of his sons has it, where when you strain, it almost looks like a purple triangle on the forehead.
Hmm.
And that's another sign that you could possibly have this genetic defect, which is causing your body just not to process the toxins and get rid of them as well as the next person.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So to know what your physiology is kind of set up for so that you can optimize it. And
Yep.
this could be considered like biohacking. I really look at it as more, okay, let's get the information
Knowledge.
that's within us, and how can we modify our living to be in a specific way that's ideal for our physiology,
Right.
and not just, what's popular
Right.
at this time.
Well, and knowing what is it that's affecting our body so that we can take the hand off the fire. If we're constantly trying to guess at what it is that's causing issues for the body, then we could still have our hand on the fire. Many times that's what happens. People are, I've cleaned up my diet, I've cleaned up, I'm moving and getting the exercise, but I'm still not feeling well. I know I'm not optimal. Maybe I've got blocked emotions. Maybe I've got toxins going on, and we can dig in and find out what's going on there. We just haven't got the hand off the fire yet.
Yeah, I think that's really important. So what are some of the common, some of the most common things in people's homes, like the top 3 things that are the most toxic that people could reduce right now?
Oh, I'm going to go with water. Our water sources are horrible right now. EWG.org, and here in the United States. Do you guys have access to the EWG.org?
Yes,
Okay.
we do.
All right. So if you go to their website and type in your zip code, they will tell you what your municipality water testing is like, and what is above what they consider normal levels within your water. So a lot of people very much focus on drinking water, which is great. That's a good thing and place to start. But we really need to be focusing on what we're bathing and showering in. So if you cannot do a whole house water filtration system, that ultimately is the best option for us. Then what you want to do is there are filters that they sell that you can screw right into the shower head, and make sure that you're filtering that. Because think about it, when we're in the shower, that's hot water. We're opening up the pores to our body. We're just soaking in all of those heavy metals, the chlorine, the fluoride, all of that is being absorbed through the skin, and it's causing way more damage to our body than our drinking water. So,
Mhm.
we definitely need to be looking at the water.
I'm a big fan of this topic. Actually, I had my hair colored recently, and my hairstylist was like, "Your hair's gone a different color and is responding differently to the coloring agents."
Mm-hmm.
And I'd moved recently, and so we're on the same city water, but I'm in a different location. And if we're on the same city water, we also have to think about what are the pipes that the
Yes.
water is going through. What are some of the minerals that are being taken from those pipes, and then you're being, washed in? What are some of the sort of like accumulation of like rust and other metals that could be negatively impacting our bodies based on the pipes around us, right? Not just the city water, but where that water's flowing through. Do you know much about that?
Yes, there's a lot in pipes. Now, metal pipes have not been used. Well, they're used up to the source of the street. So there are a lot of iron pipes, metal piping that is water sources used up to the street. But once you go from the street connection to the house, even in commercial here in the States, they've changed over to PVC piping. Well, okay, that's fine. You're not going to get the heavy metals, but what about all the accumulation of whatever is inside that piping, right?
Yeah, like at the
So,
junctures between the different pipes
right.
where they connect, there could for sure be buildup of different microbes and things.
And PVC is plastic, so again, we're pulling in plastics, and if we're in a hot area, anytime plastic is heated up, it's just really releasing all the toxicity of the plastic. So, just filtering our water is going to take care of so many things, and there's different modalities with that. So there's carbon, there's reverse osmosis. There are so many different ways that we can handle our water, and my research research has shown that reverse osmosis is the best way to filter the water. Now we've taken everything out, so we need to add minerals back in for our drinking water and to replenish the body. But reverse osmosis is going to take care of the vast majority of the toxins that we're going to be exposed to through our water.
Yeah, we have that set up in the kitchen. So just, on demand, we have that. But what about for our shower faucets?
So you can get a whole house reverse osmosis system. And I really encourage people to do that. Now, you might be in a housing that's temporary. It's an apartment, it's not yours, and don't want to go to the expense. They do sell, you can go on to Amazon and there are charcoal filtering shower heads that you can actually screw right into the shower head. And that is going to take care of a vast majority of the toxins that are coming out of the water that we're showering in.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know when I've traveled, obviously we're not traveling right now, and I've, drawn a bath for myself, the water is
Mm.
blue.
Yeah. There's, walking into hotel, we travel by a motor coach, so I take my house with me. I rarely stay at a hotel if I have to because it's an event that I'm going to. The chlorine smell is so overwhelming when you walk into the room. My eyes will be red most of the time at events because the chlorine is just so strong. They're using, the bleach on the sheets and the towels, let alone in the water sources. It's so high, so high.
Do you know why city water kind of will put that blue tinge in the water? Like you're putting your water in a white bathtub.
It has to be something that has to do with the cleaning and sanitizing. I'm not sure what the blue agent is off the top of my head. I'd have to look that back up, but it has to be something in the sanitization of the water.
Yeah. So if we can reduce that layer of toxicity, that's really, really important. So, really interesting question for you here is how are toxic thoughts and stress impacting our beauty?
Well, let me share a story with you. One of the biggest things that I had going on in my physical body was stress. It was huge in my body. I had what I deemed a high stress job. I was constantly having things going on. I would go to bed at night, be perfectly fine. I'd wake up in the morning and the whole side of my face would be so swollen you couldn't even see my jawline.
Wow.
I would have these abscesses that would develop and they would have to cut into my cheek and put tubes in there to drain everything out. It happened repeatedly for me. So stress manifested in my body that way. I also sometimes would go to bed perfectly fine. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have like 50 canker sores inside my mouth, down my throat, where I'd have to be numbed in order to even get fluid down my body. So stress plays a huge role in our bodies. And unfortunately, even though I was going to doctors during that time frame, they all would say, "You're under stress," but no one was telling me what to do. We all know we're under stress. It can affect our digestive system. It affects our skin. We break out. A lot of us will break out when we're under a lot of stress. We can lose hair as part of being under stress. A lot of women bite their fingernails, even men. So now we're creating irritation around our skin, around our fingers, and opening it up for infection. Yeah, people pick at their faces. People. Have you ever noticed, especially when we're at workshops, people want to touch their faces, they're touching their skin, they'll pick at something on their skin, and that is signs for infection and bacteria and all that to be coming into the body. But I want to talk about our thoughts. Stress is always going to be there. That's a fact of life. We can't change what's happening out here, and sometimes we can't change what career we're in. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. And sometimes our stressors might come from our family, right? We're born into that. That's not going to change. But what we can do is change how we respond to that. And that's what I needed to learn for me in order to reduce all of those toxicities that were happening in my body. So I had to learn, what do I have control over? Do I have control over, what Johnny over here is saying and doing? Do I have control over these things? If I don't have control over it, then I need to let it go. And so prayer and meditation was huge for me, and knowing who is in the driver's seat in my life. Who's got the power here and who doesn't. And that doesn't mean I don't take daily steps. That doesn't mean that there's not action that I have to take on my behalf, but there's someone else that's in control and in the bigger picture. Um, Exercise was huge, to release stress. When we exercise, we're releasing endorphins in our body. That is that feel good, so that we're releasing that stress. And when we sweat, we're releasing more toxins out of the body. So exercise is fantastic, even if it's go out and walk around the block, but get your body moving in order to release those endorphins and get the feel good vibes going. Making
Mm-hmm.
we're sleeping, getting good quality sleep at night. You should at least have 7 hours of sleep. That is going to help you. And we can talk all day long about sleep and how to create a good sleeping environment, but that wasn't the question. I'm going off on a tangent over here. But prayer, meditation, exercise, the food choices that we make certainly affect our stress levels. If our digestive system is inflamed because we're eating too much sugar, we're eating too much processed foods, then we can't reduce that stress because our body is constantly on high alert and in that state of, fight or flight that we can't get out of. So we have to look at it in this whole big rounded picture, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And with the nutrition, it's actually knowing what is good for you and what to avoid that might actually be adding to your reactive oxygen species. So this really is inflammation is really the root cause of aging and breakdown of our physiology. And, it impacts our hormones and our skin and all sorts of things. So we really want to be limiting that oxidative stress in our body. If you don't know what oxidative stress is, you need to, because this is really the root cause of everything going wrong in our body.
Oxidative stress is horrible for the body. And if we can increase glutathione in our body,
Yeah.
that's our knight in shining armor. That's what we want to, really power up with. And we can find that in so many different supplements, nutritional, there are foods that we can eat that really are high in glutathione content. So there's lots of things that we can do. And there's foods we talked about. Wheat might be a trigger for you. Now, there's a test
Yeah.
along with, if you're scrolling that now, along with the detox panel, you can take a nutritional test to find out what foods does your body just not like. And
Yep.
it's
I'm
really
heterozygous for gluten sensitivity.
right, right. So my big one is dairy. My
Mm.
body does not like dairy. And, so that's something that I have to stay away from completely. It is a no, it's not even a cheat every once in a while. It's just a no-go for me. So being able to identify what those things are that are causing reactions in the body is certainly going to help us, because if we can't eliminate those things, and again, it all goes to that fire. We got to take the hand off the fire. Or we're not going to have that true healing.
Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why I like to mention doing these, tests is we're having a harder time getting out of our homes and seeing people and things like that. So we can actually do these tests really easily from home. And then you get a full report on, what your genes have to say, different lifestyle modifications, a list of supplements that are going to be helpful for you to take. But I do encourage taking it then also step further and then doing some gut microbiome testing. Just talking with so many leading health experts, this is really where beauty and anti-aging is going, is just testing yourself, not just listening to who's saying this and what's latest and greatest. It's just asking. Like, I find I'm repeating this a lot because this is like pretty new stuff
Yes.
to connect with optimal beauty and radiance and health.
Well, in our microbiome, we've got hair, skin, gut microbiome. So, what have we been doing over the last 3 months? Everybody's using enormous amounts of hand sanitizer. Okay, that's all fine and good when you're in a situation where you can't get to soap and water, but the hand sanitizer has alcohol in it, so it's killing off everything on the skin microbiome, which is your body's first line of defense for your immune system.
Mhm.
So, this is putting everything out of balance. And if the microbiome is out of balance, the gut can't get healed either, because we've got too much of the bad bacteria happening in there, in the gut, on the skin. Everything is just this balance. We walk this fine line of getting everything into balance for the body.
Yeah. I think that's great. When I had you speaking on my Immune Boosting Health Summit a couple of months ago, you really hit the nail on the head with all of these topics, because when we detox our body, when we limit exposures to toxins in our environment, beauty products and routines and things like that, we give our body a better chance to support itself, to fight off pathogens, viruses, bacteria, to boost our immune system. So not only are we going to be healthier, we're going to be more resilient, we're going to be more beautiful, and we're going to be more mentally clear. And this is really, really key, because people are behaving in certain ways.
Yeah.
What we can do to be more kind to one another right now, and really isolate when, say, something might be attracted to us, whether consciously or subconsciously, with any type of stress or drama. We need to really cultivate our own practices for clearing that. Because if you start to notice thoughts that might not be your own, what is that? Are you having increased anxiety because you're not sleeping enough? Are you having increased anxiety because you're not moving enough? You're not moving that life force around, right? Like if you just get stuck, you're not going to be grounded. You're going to have an imbalance of your proton and electron gradients, which does impact our mitochondria and everything else in our body. So some of this stuff might sound like a little bit woo, but there is a lot of science to connect it. And so just be aware of that. If you notice that, different stressors are just replaying in your mind, how can you release it? How can you move past that and, be in the present moment? So one of the things that I do is I get out in nature every single day. Once a week, I go deep into the woods with one of my best friends, 3 hours out of any cell reception. There's bears, there's cougars, there's no people, there's no traffic sounds, there's no Wi-Fi, EMF. We turn all of our electronics off and we just go off grid. I do this literally every week. And I feel like now it's actually a survival thing for me. It's not just a luxury. It's something that I actually have to do in order to then come back and be emptied. Does that make
Right.
sense?
No, absolutely. And, take the shoes off, take the shoes and the socks off. Just 15 minutes of your feet touching the soil will help ground you and make you feel better. It will lift your energy. So I'm an outdoors person. I'm in the water, I'm kayaking, I'm paddleboarding, I'm walking. You know,
Amazing.
I am out in nature as well. There is something so nurturing about being in nature and shutting off. I'd like to say one more thing about that, because there is so much information. While some of it is so good to be able to have access to so many things at our fingertips, I really encourage people to do a couple things. Number one is limit your screen time. I don't have any notifications set up on my phone at all, because I actually schedule when I'm going to be looking at emails, looking at social media, that type of thing. So limit your screen time. We can get lost in this comparison world. We can get lost in this world of I'm not as good as, or, that all those things that we like to do on social media, or even lost into the arguments of the day. There's so much polarization going on, and I just choose not to take part in it. I turn the TV off, I turn the news off, and just, if you want to know what's going on, limit your time and access to it, because that certainly is leading to a lot of stress and anxiety that so many people are feeling today. And in the world of the virus, you know, even the experts are changing their minds every other day as to what is going on and what's happening.
Yeah, even a
So,
number of our colleagues, because we are basically networked with people that are speaking on the news all the time on these topics.
yes,
And some of them are actually feeling like they've been part of the problem. So even the people that you're seeing on the news talking, they're even taking a step back and they're saying, wait a second, we need to not necessarily be hopping on the bandwagon of what's, hot right now, because there's always going to be something to talk
right.
about. So I
Totally.
I recommend avoiding being pulled into the reality of what you see on the news, what's social media, and be in your own space, be with your family, be with your loved ones, create your own reality.
Right. be be focused on what you have control over. You know what you have control over is, we've talked about, removing these toxins is going to help boost your immune system. Exercising is going to help boost your immune system. Getting rid of the toxic thoughts and the toxic energy are going to help boost your immune system. So the big things that we want to do is be able to make sure that we're giving our bodies a fighting chance. This virus, they talk about, well, it's really only affecting the people who have underlying medical conditions. People that us have an underlying medical condition. So we need to be aware of what we can do, what we can make small changes right now, today, to impact our overall health and well-being, and avoid, you know, getting pulled into the drama and getting pulled into, uh, being living in fear. That's the last thing we want to do, is live in fear. And then we've got the whole other social issue. And the the big thing I want to say with that is, I'm taught to love everyone. That's my God, who says we love everyone. I Jesus went out to the sinners of the world, and that's who he lived with, and that's who he communed with, and that's who he was a part of. And we love everyone. It does not matter to me what color your skin is, what you believe, what you don't believe, what church you go to, what church you don't go to. I love you because you're a child of God. Period. End of story.
Mic drop. Yeah, I definitely echo everything that you just said there. So, what are some of your practices for clearing your body, mind, and spirit? Like, what do you do? How do you do that? Because this is something I don't necessarily hear a lot of people talking about. But this whole clearing energetically is something I do. First thing I do when I wake up, first thing I do when I go to bed, whether, you could almost call that my prayer meditation practice. But how do you do it?
Okay, so I have a couple different ways that I like to clear my energy. We are all energy. The plants, everything is energy. So I use essential oils to balance my energy. Essential oils have a frequency about them, but there's one in particular. I don't know if you want me to name it, or not, but I will use it. I put 3 drops
Yeah,
on the
what is
palm
it?
of
I'd love
it's,
to know what you love.
it's called Valor. So I put 3 drops on the palm of my hands, and then I'm going to take my hands and crisscross onto my shoulders. And then that is going to balance my energies out. So I will feel in the palm of my hands like a pulse, but it's my body's energy pulse. And I wait until I feel it equally in both hands. Then I'm going to put 3 more drops into the palm of my hands, and I'm going to do the same thing on the soles of my feet. So I'm going to sit on the floor, and I'm going to hold the soles of my feet. And I do that every single morning and every single night. And I just make sure that my body's balance is back into, my energy is back into balance.
Yeah, I love that. I love hearing about different people's practices. And it's funny when I actually share what I do to like a select group of people, they're like, oh my gosh, that's cool. I want to try that. But then
Yeah.
when you say it to other people, they might say, oh, that sounds like totally nuts. The thing
Yeah.
is that you don't have to explain yourself to anybody. How you live your life, your lifestyle, your genes are specific to you.
Right.
No one else has your specific set of genes and physiology. That's why information like genetic testing from a crime scene can be so effective for isolating somebody, right? So
Right.
we are all unique beings made in a particular unique way. And it really does take time to actually cultivate how we can best support our physical body.
Right. Right.
Now it's actually just getting easier than ever.
Right. Well, and oh gosh, we have access to so many different things that we didn't have access to before, and so many different people. Look at what we're doing right now. So in this world today, there's so much has become virtual for us that we can do. But the oils, absolutely, in my energy. I also use crystals. I have crystals strategically placed all throughout my house that I use to keep the energy balanced within my home. If it's gotten really kitty wampus, I'll do some sage burning within my home just to do a clearing, so to speak, of the house. So there's lots of different modalities that you can use. You have to see what works for you and what feels good for you.
Yeah, it's pretty simple for me. I just get outside, hang out with a bunch of old growth trees that have been there for thousands of years. There's actually a beautiful sacred forest on the island where I live here, and that's where I go. I get drawn to certain places in
Hmm.
nature where I just feel like I can just really be my most truest, radiant version. So that whole term authenticity, I interviewed JJ Virgin. You know who JJ Virgin is.
Yeah.
She's the biggest health and wellness icon out there. And I think you'd probably agree with that. She
Yes.
basically took nutrition and personal training online. She spearheaded a lot of what we all do to share
Hmm.
these messages. She really paved the way for us. And
Right.
now yeah, and she was saying, I don't understand why people are using this buzzword of just be authentic. And she had a really great way of rephrasing it. And I agree with her. It's just when you are your most grounded version of yourself, you're going to be your most truest, beautiful version of yourself. So, whatever that type of practice might look like, whether it's, for example, my husband, he's a pro athlete, his church is working out.
Yeah.
He looks at his body like it's a temple.
Yeah.
And he did the gene testing with me as well. And funnily enough, he's predisposed to obesity and he literally has a 10 pack. So he's been able to, over the years, look after himself in a way that he knows feels right to him.
Right.
But he's got a predisposition to xenoestrogens. And that was actually elevated. And I think it's in some of the foods that he's eating, like crackers that are stored in this plastic. I swear that's where it's from. And he was eating these crackers from overseas for many, many years.
Does he eat a lot of meat?
A lot of cooked meat. Yeah.
A lot of,
Yeah. So
because
that's another tweak too. Yeah.
yeah, I was going to say a lot of our hormones are coming in through our meat products because
Mhm.
of the way that the animal is raised and treated, in the growing process. That's
Yeah.
what I'm going to
Yeah.
say.
I mean, we're lucky to be able to grow a lot of our own food here. Like we grow all of our lettuces, our sweet peas, our herbs, and things like that. Chickens are next. And I'm going to be asking Dave Asprey about his tips on raising little lambs because his farm is just incredible. How he's living with his family is kind of the dream.
Yeah.
And about 2 years ago, when I first started my Instagram page and Facebook at Rachel Varga Official, I actually found a picture of him and his family in their garden. And that was literally the second post I ever shared. And I'm like, that is
It's
the dream.
I love gardening. That's another thing too. Our food sources have so many pesticides and herbicides on them. So if you can grow your own, and it doesn't matter where you are, there are containers. If you watched, did you see Chantel Ray's recent post of the gardening containers? You literally, with 3 of these containers, can grow an entire garden to feed an entire family. And they're just fun. There's all kinds of sources out there for us to do these things. I live in the summertime in northern Iowa, and it's huge poultry country. And if you went and lived where I live, you would not eat another piece of poultry ever. And to see it's awful, absolutely
Mhm.
awful the way they're raised.
Yeah. So to be aware of, the different farms that your foods are coming from, grow on your own patio, that's
Mhm.
really helpful as well.
Yes.
So I'm really glad that we had a chance to talk about a number of different things, and in particular, hearing about your specific clearing practices. I think it's wonderful asking people. And Dr. Jason Littleton, he actually asked me on my specific morning and nighttime practices, and I think it's cool. So when you're listening to this, just glean certain things that resonate with you, because certain clearing practices aren't going to resonate. Like, I could not picture my mother using sage and crystals. And she's like very traditional Christian lineage. She would be like, oh, that stuff's nuts. But then for other people, it just feels good, right? I like to hold selenite when I talk, or,
Mhm.
there's so many different things that we can do.
Mhm.
So do you have any final remarks, any closing words for us, Aimee?
We've touched on it already in that, there's not one answer for everybody. Everybody is different. You have to find your path and do what feels right for you. And I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. That's the thing. If we just take one small step, it's one more, in the right direction. And that's all we can do, is always be stepping in the next right direction. And just take it that way. When we try to look at everything, it's so overwhelming, and there's so much. And I'm 7 years into this, and I'm still learning so much. There's such, new things coming out all the time. So just do one thing. It's your body. This isn't a dress rehearsal. This is the only physical body that you're going to have, and treat it well, and it will treat you well.
I really loved that layer of adaptation, because our environment is constantly changing. So the environment we live in now was very different from
Yeah.
10, 15, 20, 30, 100,000 years ago. So I think the more that we can, just continue to listen to our body as it goes through different changes. So,
Mhm.
for example, if we're looking at a woman's life, we are, my age, and then we have children, and then we retire, our kids move on, and we experience menopause, we may experience the loss of a loved one. At all of those points, I do encourage you to just take a step back and evaluate how you're navigating this life, what you have going on around you in your home, how you can optimize, clean things up, and just do things that make you feel good. In another interview, what was shared was, if something brings you joy, do more of that, because
Yeah.
that can be your barometer to what makes you feel good, right? So for your clearing practices, it might be very different than my clearing
Mhm.
practices, but it just is what makes us feel good. So be hyper vigilant and hypersensitive to what makes you feel good and what makes you feel not so good, because
Yeah.
you will be your most radiant, vibrant, gorgeous version when you are doing things all the time that make you feel good. And if there's something that you're exposed to that doesn't make you feel so good, just, kind of remove it, clear it, and then just focus on the things that do. So,
Right.
we aren't perfect. We're going to get exposure to certain things. We might feel like we want to have a cheat food, stuff like that. I'm all about moderation. But just like really pay attention to how you feel after you have that cheat food, and
Right.
see if there's maybe a cleaner option to it, if you
Right.
still want to have like that sweet or whatever in your
Right.
food.
You know, um, if I can, one last thought. I work with a mindset coach, and we were just discussing about balance. I have for so long used the word balance, that we're always trying to find that work life balance and that balance in our life. And if we think about balance, we're thinking about a scale, right? And it has to be equal. And sometimes our lives are just not going to be equal. Work and home life isn't going to be equal, or whatever that is. Think about things in your life as being in harmony. If we can be in harmony versus balance, I think we're going to find much more of that joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, balance is really that theme with everything that I'm finding in my conversations as well with experts. So where can people find you?
So my website is aimeecarlson.com, and that's AIMEECARLSON.com. From there, you can get into the podcast. You can get onto my YouTube channel. I have a Facebook group called the Toxin Free Lifestyle. I really pour a lot of love into that group. So if you really want to connect with me, that would be the best place to find me.
Fantastic. So everybody check out Aimee Carlson and her tips for living a toxin-free life. Thank you, everyone. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say too, I just released a book, The Toxin Terminator, so that you can be able to pick up through the website as well. And it walks you through the 5 pillars of living a toxin-free lifestyle.
Wonderful. You are a woman with a mission that just wants to help others feel better. I think that's very noble of you, and you're being very brave. And I'm just very grateful for people like you. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode here on the Rachel Varga podcast. If you're a listener or if you're watching on the Rachel Varga official Facebook page or YouTube channel, I would love to hear from you. Please send me a message at info@rachelvarga.ca. Send me an email or a question or a comment. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast here. And yeah, I love hearing from all of you listening, because what it does is it can direct me into the avenues of topics that you're most interested in learning about. Because I'm here showing up for all of you to, just help everybody be sort of the best humans we possibly can. Because when we are more stable, balanced, healthy humans, what happens? We have more positive interactions with people, places, and things around us. So I really want to actually be a part of accelerating that. And it's through these types of conversations, because we are having quite an explosion of accelerated learning at this time to help us be optimized. And thanks to science of modern day, we're kind of taking the what might have seemed a little abstract and different practices that actually there's science to back up that they are helpful for us. So thank you, everyone, for joining. And thank you, Aimee, for being on the show today. It was a pleasure having you.
Oh, you've been a gracious host. Thank you.
Wonderful. And be sure to head on over to my website at rachelvarga.ca. There's a number of ways that you can work with me. Virtual one-on-one calls are available where I can walk you through how to optimize your skin routine, what you're doing at home, in the clinic, dermal rolling, lasers, all of that rejuvenation stuff. That is my area of specialty. And I love helping people do things in a way that reduces their toxic load by reducing and simplifying what they're actually putting on their skin, but just making sure that they're backed by research and they're free of ingredients like parabens, phthalates, sulfates, artificial dyes, fragrances, and not tested on animals. That was a mouthful. I say that all the time. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you listening, and for you, Aimee, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we just had a thank you from Leanna. Wonderful. Thanks for popping in, Leanna, in this live call. Have a great rest of the day, everyone. Bye.